Welcome to the Voice of Change, where advocacy meets action. I'm your host, Linda, a dedicated community leader, a voice for the voiceless. Join me as we explore the stories and strategies that shape our local and global communities while inspiring positive change. Please be sure to follow me on Instagram at Linda Advocate and follow my blog at the Times of Israel, where my articles consistently end with calls to action to encourage readers to participate in constructive change. In the last few shows, I dedicated our time to amplifying stories and issues that shed light on the struggles, triumphs, and narratives that shape our world. Today, we continue that trend by exploring the impactful work of individuals who courageously stand up for what they believe in. Today, I have the extraordinary privilege of introducing someone who's impacting so many, not just as an artist, but through his unwavering, staunch dedication to causes close to his heart. Of course, I'm talking about the legendary David Draiman, frontman for Disturbed. His voice transcends the realm of music and echoes in the chambers of activism. David, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
David, I have to share my journey to this moment began not from the stages of your music, but from common ground of our shared activism. I will admit, I did not know who you were initially. However, through our mutual commitment to advocacy, my admiration for you grew because what I noticed from my vantage point was a larger than life man with incredible humanity. Faced with the weight of public scrutiny, you stand firm with courage, conviction on issues that many, sadly, in your industry shy away from.
Yeah,
David,
I,
can you
I wish
share
they would
some?
shy away as much on the other side of the issue too, but they're
Uh,
far more
yes,
on that side than our
agreed.
side. Yeah.
Absolutely. David, can you share some insight on how your formative years and personal experiences shape your perspectives and activism right now?
Well, I was raised as an Orthodox Jew. I was trained as a cantor when I was a young boy. I used to lead high holiday prayers in my early teens. Those are really the first, public
Wow.
performances I ever gave, I guess you could say.
I think you just blew the hats off many of my viewers right now. Okay, that's
Um,
incredible.
I went to five different parochial boarding schools, or as we like to call them, yeshivot, except for the last one. The last one was a mixed school. It was just a Hebrew day school. Um, and I was about 2.5 years away from getting smicha before I kind of turned off the path.
I'm sorry. Did you just say you were a rabbinical student go actually pursuing your smicha? I'm shocked.
I was 2.5 years away from it. Yeah. So with 4 years of high school, I went to five different schools, kept getting thrown out again and again and again, except for the last two. The last one, the second to last one, they didn't ask me to leave. They actually really loved me, which was kind of a nice change. um,
Wow.
and the final one was a place called Ida Crown Jewish Academy in Chicago. And then for my year after high school, I went to Neve Zion in just outside of Yerushalayim, and spent my year in seminary there. And yeah, I was headed to lead a very different sort of congregation at that time, and I ended up going to university, to a wonderful Jesuit university called Loyola University of Chicago. Um, and between my year in seminary in Israel and my 3.5 years at Loyola, um, I personally came to uh, certain conclusions in terms of what I was doing out of habit and what I was doing out of faith. And I still have a tremendous amount of reverence and respect for um, anyone who is part of our faith and our bloodline and our race and our religion, no matter how observant or non-observant they may be. I think they're all tremendously valued. I still have a tremendous amount of respect and reverence for orthodoxy in general. I love the sense of community that it creates. I love the sense of family that it reinforces. I'm always awestruck by just how much the average Orthodox family is able to handle. It's quite inspiring to witness amongst my own relatives and my loved ones as well.
And you wear tefillin, don't you? You put tefillin on.
Not daily. When the Lubavitch guys catch me, they get on film.
That's pretty funny. Okay, but you do own a pair. This I
I
know.
do. I do.
And we're so proud of you. That's amazing. And we invite you for Shabbat on that note. Anytime you're in Brooklyn, you're invited for a Shabbat for
I
good
appreciate
Syrian
it.
food.
Thank you.
David, what led you to become more vocal about Israel? What was the specific event? Was it October 7th that motivated your activism, or was
No,
it
it
prior?
was prior to that. It was a couple years prior, actually. So I had an old social media account on what was then known as Twitter, which is now known as X,
Sure.
um, uh, for about 10 years ago. And then I was also very much a voice of being pro-Israel and in our space at the time as well. But I had was so much so, and I engaged so much with some of these online keyboard warriors, maybe a little bit too much for my own good, to
Mm.
the extent that being someone in my position, I got under a lot of people's radar, and I had the feds contact me to let me know that I was on a number of lists.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
and we're not talking about doxing lists, we're talking about hit lists. So they recommended that I shut down and that I lay low for a while. And I deleted my original Twitter account, which had, about 500, 600,000 followers at the time, and let all the rest of my social media stay dormant for about 7 years. And I think it was just before the terror attack that happened in the Shuk in the old city, and I can't remember the family's
Sbarro?
name.
Are you talking about with Sbarro, with the pizza shop then?
No, 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 no. It was actually, if you're heading toward the Kotel,
Hmm.
there's a shortcut where you can take where you walk through the Shuk, right?
Yeah. Yes, of course.
Yeah, so that was where there was a terror incident where a young man was murdered. And I had walked that walk so many times myself, going to the Kotel, that it really shook me. And that was a couple of years prior to October 7th.
Okay.
And I hated the fact that I didn't have a means to voice my own personal beliefs and to be able to raise my voice in protest and to be able to let people know that this was something that meant a lot to me. And I, at the time, started a new Twitter account and brought my other social media entities back to life. And I actually led a little demonstration right at the site of the terror attack in the Shuk. There were a few hundred people there that day. It was all over the Israeli news. It was a really nice Kiddush Hashem.
Were
And
you there for a concert or you went there
no,
specifically to show
no,
support?
I went there, well, twofold. I have a lot of family in Israel, over 2,000 relatives still in Israel. My parents, my brother's family, my grandmother, uncles, aunts, cousins, tons of people. So I go every couple of years. I try to make it over there. And so, but the timing of it was decided directly because of said terror incident. And
Mm.
I wanted to do something about it. And we had a nice demonstration and a nice moment. And ever since then, I have been reactivated in the space. Um, and it's been a mixture of being rewarding and being terrifying all at the same time. I get, oh God, hundreds of threats every single day. Um,
Do you know if any of them are credible threats like before?
Uh, Not to the extent that I'm on hit lists. At least the feds haven't reached out to me again at this point.
Oh, God.
It's mostly these bots and online, idiots who I have somehow confused the Jewish people for being a colonial entity, that somehow the wannabe Marxist socialists of the world have been able to be duped by the Palestinian cause, that somehow that they are one and the same, which they're absolutely not. They couldn't be more conflicting if they tried. Um, and it's nothing I'm not accustomed to. Unfortunately, I wasn't accustomed to literal death threats on a regular basis, but
Yeah.
a lot of these people are very, very bold in front of their keyboards, and they love to bully from their little pulpits, and they outnumber us by, I don't know how many to one. It's crazy, but you have to take everything with a grain of salt. I've had to, for the first time in my career during this last tour that I just finished, it was the first time I ever actually traveled with personal security. Um,
Wow.
that was something that I really had no choice in, because my location and the dates of when I'm supposed to be there are,
Public.
advertised in advance for these shows. So
Yeah,
it's
sure.
people know. Um, so I just had to err on the side of caution. We didn't have any incidents of any kind the entire run. I think
God.
the closest thing we had to an incident was having people from the Westboro Baptist Church protest one of our shows in Kansas City, which doesn't really count. So um,
You could
I
live with
yeah,
that.
I can more than I can live with all of it, to be honest. I kind of came to a crisis of conscience when things were starting to intensify a couple years prior to October 7th. And I could no longer resign myself to stay silent while my, young son was watching. Uh, I didn't want him to think that the way that we conduct ourselves is to cower,
Right.
and to not be brave and not be bold, and to allow those who try to intimidate us to succeed. I wanted him to see me as an example of honor and discipline and belief and courage. I wanted
Well, that
him to
you
follow the same path.
are.
Thank you.
Absolutely. No, you are. Have you experienced negative feedback from peers or your fans or even vendors, like what Matisyahu, the American reggae singer,
No. I mean,
experienced?
the beautiful thing about being so blessed as we are at the level that we are, is that once you get to a certain uh, point in your career where you're filling arenas, they're owned by large conglomerates, either Live Nation or AEG or so on and so forth. The personnel and the staff in there are unionized. So it's very difficult for something like what went down at the Rialto Theater in Phoenix
Mhm.
to happen to someone at our level.
Okay.
There's a lot more money behind it. There's a lot more loss involved. There's potential lawsuits involved, big ones. So nobody shakes that tree, not when there's so much revenue coming in for them. But I mean, I have gotten, like I said, the army of keyboard warriors who unleash on me on a daily basis, which I'm pretty much used to for the duration of my career anyway, for one reason or another. Uh, but as far as dealing with what Montes had to deal with, I did not, and I could not let something like that uh, go unanswered. Whether it was that, whether it was, and I can't remember the artist's name, but the Israeli artist who just played on Harvard campus at the Hillel.
Oh, you're talking about Ishai Rebo.
Yes, yes, yes. And so I was in contact with the promoter right when they were feeling the heat, trying to make sure that we had an alternate venue available just in case, trying to make sure that they were hiring off-duty officers and getting private security down there to make sure that whatever was going to happen as far as a protest was kept under control so that he could still perform. Um, I'm always going to do everything in my power, and with everything that I've been blessed with, to not allow members of our community to be intimidated.
Well,
I
back up. Don't be so humble because you had a lot to do with what went on with Matisiao. Can you give us a little bit of background there?
Well, when I heard about it, the first thing I did was reach out to him via his own management. We only met very briefly a bunch of years ago in Miami at an event, and I'm sure he doesn't even remember it. But when that went down, I had as they
Quite
say,
memorable, David. I'm sure he does remember it.
uh, but I had my people get a hold of his people, as we say, and they put me directly in touch with him. And he expressed a concern for his own family's safety after what went down. I've been in touch with State Representative Alma Hernandez as well, trying to see what we can do together to prevent such a thing from happening in the future, to make sure that there are consequences for those actions. And I started that online GoFundMe campaign for the funds. I was able to get a very well decorated Navy SEAL who specializes in personal security to fly out within a few days. I floated his organization a bunch of money until the funds came in from the GoFundMe campaign, so that they had something to actually pay the guy. Because look, when you're running a tour like Matisiao is running, the profit margins are very slim, and it's not like they're making tons of money to begin with, and it's not necessarily in his budget to be able to have that additional security. But he's telling me how his children are terrified, that they're having nightmares about men in masks screaming at them through the bus windows, and so on and so forth. And I just couldn't stand it.
Of
So,
course.
I did whatever I could to try and mobilize whatever resources I could at the time. And thank God he now has, someone who's very, very capable, taking care of him and his family for the duration of this tour of his. And, thanks to our community for being able to come together and provide the rest of the resources that he needed.
That's amazing. Speaking of fellow artists, I read recently that there is an ongoing feud between yourself and Roger Waters. Can you speak to that?
Oh, sure. Good old Roger. He he's a piece of work, that deluded old freak. Anti-Semitic to his rotten core. Just ask David Gilmour and his wife. They'll testify to it. He's been that way for the duration of his life and the duration of his career. It's nothing new. He's a coward. He's a hypocrite. He is a supporter of dictators and dictatorial regimes all over the world. He's an apologist for Putin, an apologist for anybody that's on the wrong side of history. He's a deluded wannabe socialist as well.
Mhm.
And everything that he wrote about, everything that he professed to believe in, that was so, you know, even even a maniac can create some great art, and it's hard to argue with the level of artistry of, let's say, a piece of work like The Wall. But everything that he was trying to convey and express in that piece of art, he has shown himself to be a hypocrite for. Um, I was already losing my mind with him years ago when he was flying around a pig in his stadiums with the Star of David on it. I mean, I the guy is a bully, and he wouldn't even dare to engage with me, because it's not about logic and reasoning and facts and
Mhm.
reality to people like him. It's
Yeah.
all about the narrative. It's all about their hate-fueled, anti-Semitic, um, you know, just spite-filled narrative that they continue to fuel, this narrative of demonization of our people, of the state of Israel, their inability to accept the fact that we even exist. He's a monster. He's a
Yeah.
monster. And
I take it you never met him in person.
oh, I'd love to meet him in person. Nothing would make me happier. I'd gladly serve whatever jail time and pay the bail necessary for whatever I could get done within a very limited period of time, if I
No, no,
had
we need you hale and
financial means
healthy,
to do
David, and safe. Stay clean. We need you to do what you're doing still.
Yeah, that's okay.
Um,
That's what attorneys are for.
just to backtrack really quickly, you have these concerts which you said fill stadiums, And I've seen, I mean, many of us have
Oh,
seen
arenas, but yeah.
arenas, yes.
Mhm.
Many of us have seen how you speak about what's going on in Israel, without mincing any words whatsoever. Do the people cheer you? I mean, do you think that the majority like are with us?
I think that we always need to bear in mind that the loudest voices in the room are typically fringe ones, and they scream the loudest, and they're amplified the most by the mainstream media. We need to take a lot of the negativity that we experience with a grain of salt. There was just a Harvard-Harris survey that was published just a week ago that showed that over 80% of the US public broadly support Israel in their campaign against Hamas. I think that we have not experienced a single ounce of negativity as far as our career is concerned. I just finished the second half of what is the most successful touring run we've ever had in our career. I currently have the #1 single at radio at Active Rock with our
Yes.
duet that we did with Ann Wilson called Don't Tell Me. I currently have
Amazing.
#1 song and on iTunes in Europe with a resurgence from a remix that was done by a very talented remixer by the name of Cyril of our cover of the Sound of Silence track. It's #3 in the world. We're not hurting. We're very, very blessed. We continue to be very, very blessed. I'm looking forward to heading out to New Zealand and Australia on later this next week and playing shows there, which are looking to be great as well. I have festival performances going on over the duration of the rest of the year. I'm a living, breathing example to all the other Jewish artists out there who are so terrified, and understandably so, because there's a lot of people out there saying some pretty horrible things. Uh, and that there is no reason to shy away from who we are. There's no reason not to defend our people because our cause is just and our cause is real and our cause is validated. Every day of our existence, it becomes more and more so. I think it's a shame that there aren't more who are willing to take what they've been given, take the platform that they've been blessed with, and use it as a voice for good. It's incredible how when the virtue signalers of the world want to go ahead and jump on board the bandwagon for cause A, B, and C, they don't hesitate for a minute. But when it comes to defending Jews,
Yeah.
they're very, very hesitant,
That was
which
actually gonna be
says a
one of my
lot.
questions. Have you spoken to anybody, like, on your level, celebrities, artists, musicians, and asked them why they shy away? I mean, there is an existential threat right now. You would think this is the time to speak out.
Well, what we don't do, okay, that the other side does en masse, is we don't terrorize. Okay, we are
Correct.
not animals. We don't act like animals, and we don't lower ourselves to their level. They don't pull any punches. They do terrorize. They do bully. They do threaten. Okay, they do all of those things, and they do it in numbers that we simply do not have. And so the terror campaign, the online terror campaign, works. It scares people, it intimidates them, and people are, worried about the potential risk to their careers, the potential risk of being canceled for just defending who we are and our very existence. And like I said, I'm living proof that it's not happening. Um, I have been very, very careful for the duration of my career not to mix politics with what we do as a band. Uh, the vast majority of the time, my advocacy has been, for the most part, limited to my own personal social media and my own personal beliefs, which I do not push on the other members of the band, nor do I want our concert experiences to become divisive in any way.
Right.
But when that little girl, Sophia, gave me that wonderful gift of that bracelet the other night in Orlando that said Am Yisrael Chai on it, I couldn't help myself. Couldn't help
Yeah.
myself anymore. I figured it was a siman, it was a sign, and I had to say something. And it was unrehearsed and it was off the cuff, and I tried to be as careful as I could, and it seemed to have struck a chord with a lot of people and to give them some chizuk and some strengthening. And so I'm very, very happy about that. And I'll continue to try and, use my voice as much as I can, um, outside the realm of the band, but still with the platform that I've been blessed with from the band, being the front man and being the individual that I am, and being a proud Jew.
David, can you share the handles where you're not, where it's not for Disturbed, but it's more your personal handles
Sure.
and you are political?
Sure. It's all David M. Draiman. So that's my Twitter handle, that's my Instagram handle. I have a private Facebook page that the vast majority of my posts are posted privately.
Mhm.
But when it's something that I want the public to see, I change the setting and I make it the public, and I make sure everybody in the Facebook world can see it as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, I try to be as much of a supporter of our entire online community as possible. I try to
Yes.
boost and retweet and repost every single request and that I get, that I catch. Um, I'm constantly busy. My life is a ridiculous, chaotic existence. So I definitely miss things from time to time, and my apologies to those in our group and in our space that I've missed on occasion. But I think we all need to do everything we can to amplify one another as much as possible, and I'm always happy to do so.
Yeah, I'm just going to say thank you because you shared my article just the other day. I didn't even ask you to share it, and you shared it on your X platform, and I was blown away. That's like the
It was
kind
a
of
great
person.
article.
David, any final thoughts before we let you go? I don't want to monopolize your time.
Um, yeah, I do have a final thought. My final thought is that we, as an online community, are not maximizing the strength of our potential unity. That there are far too many individual agendas in our space, in the pro-Israel space, or as the other side likes to call it, the Hasbara community.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's shameful that people are as cliquish as they are. I think it's shameful that, there are these little groups within groups that they only amplify and they only retweet and they only repost one another. And they're constantly positioning themselves to further enrich themselves and get higher monetary amounts for their speaking fees, and continue to preach to the already converted, which is great. People need chizuk, people need strengthening, people need to be comforted in this time. Our own people need to be comforted in this time. But more important than anything else is to convince the people in the middle, to convince the outliers, to convince the unconvinced. That's the
Exactly.
challenge that we face. It's great to be able to preach to the choir, so to speak, but that's just what you're doing. And all you're doing is, for the most part, thinking of yourself. And I think that that's shameful. I think that the other side recognizes the strength in the numbers that they have, and the zealot, the zeitgeist that they have, and the zealotry that they exhibit in terms of amplifying their collective community's voices as a whole, is something that we need to learn from and we need to be a lot better at. And if everyone in this space could just remove their egos from their persona and
Yeah.
start to realize the assets and the bona fide warriors that are a part of our community, and we all work together and amplified one another a little bit more effectively, I think we'd be a lot further ahead. But case in point, just take a look what's going on online any given day. Everybody's very selective in terms of who and what they support. Everybody likes to interject their own politics, whether it's left-leaning or right-leaning, into what's supposed to be strictly a pro-Israel, pro-Jewish defense strategy. And it muddies the waters and it confuses people and it creates more barriers and potential enemies than doing any good. So my final word would be, stop the nonsense. Stop thinking of yourselves. Think of all Am Yisrael, all Klal Yisrael, all of the Jews in the world. We all need to be together. We all need to be unified. We need to have our collective unity used as an asset and as a strength. And now is the time.
Well, amen to that. My closing thought for today is that in today's world where taking a stand is unfortunately not commonplace, David, your perseverance is not just commendable, it's beyond inspiring. You're not just an extraordinary musician, you are an extraordinary human being. Your fearless approach to confronting the issues head on not only defines you as a formidable artist, but also a transformative force for positive change. David, thank you so much for your time today. We wish you tremendous success. And now I have another name to add to my Tehillim list for safety, which is yours. So that's going to be added right after this show. David, thank you again.
I appreciate it, Linda. Take care. Be well.